anyway. I'm glad it's not muddy. So, we're here tonight, I guess, to discuss an EMS district for, not necessarily countywide. It could be partial county, it could be whatever. But we're here to listen to the thoughts of the public and see from everybody that's here, and we've got a lot of time to wait on this anyways before we can even pass a resolution, to listen to phone calls or whatever. We're open ears. But basically what it is, in Title 18-12-105B, the legislature made it so that counties can establish a district for EMS services. And that district, once formed, if the board deems that it's good for the public, and we'll just say it's countywide for tonight, it may morph into something completely different. It may morph into nothing. But if this board deems that that's a necessity for the county and a good expense of our tax dollars, we form that district. We get board members for the district. 3 to 9 is the numbers. No less than 3, no more than 9. That district then forms a opinion on what it might cost for that district to help contribute to, I'm going to use the word contribute right now, because I think we're going to, what this might end up being is contributing to the current ambulance services that are already working within Weston County. So I don't want you to misunderstand me that this is creating just a immediate ambulance service run solely by this district. What they will do is see what kind of funding resources Campbell County, who helps out here in Newcastle and countywide, and Upton Ambulance might need in assistance to operate ambulance services within Weston County, so that we don't have bad situations where there's not an ambulance to pick somebody up and or people to help with that. But with that said, I see Campbell County representatives are here. Forgive me, cold. We've got some Upton representatives and some Newcastle folks, and with that, I'm gonna kind of open it up the floor. I'm about to have a coffee fit. And if anybody else would like to add anything. But please keep it to EMS district. That's all it was advertised for. And please raise your hand if you'd like to speak.
The only thing I would like to add on to that is, we will not pass, Board of Commissioners cannot pass a 3 mil or the 2 mils on. That will be done by the district. If the district is formed, those board members will put it on a ballot, and then it will go to the voters for the taxes. We have no control. That will be in the control of the voters on the bills.
Mr. Streeter first, sorry.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Inherent to special districts across the state, it seems that the landowners usually end up doing the heavy financial lifting, while the renters, transient laborers, tourists, and our neighbors across the lines in counties and states get to ride carousel for free. Does the commission have any plan to equilibrate financial responsibility for this, as in a dual pay scale for landowners that pay less and non-landowners pay more?
No, there isn't anything in the statute that defines that. It's basically based off of your mills that you're assessed. So if that district determines that that it's 2 mills that district deems necessary for the ambulance services. It'll be based off your assessed valuation of your primary home and the associated land with that.
I'd like to add a little more to that. It seems like it's gonna be all on the brunt of the landowners. We have pipelines, power lines, refinery, those kind of places. They're the biggest taxpayers into this. Their tax percentage-wise is, I don't have the exact numbers, but it is a larger percentage than the landowners pay. When you start digging back through it and seeing what they pay versus what the landowners pay, homeowners pay, they pay a bigger percentage. It's hard to believe, but the infrastructure in this county pays for a lot of your services.
Mr. Trammell.
Thank you. I appreciate the clarification about this potentially just contributing instead of just being the sole EMS district. Because we were, Clerk Noir and EMS Supervisor, we've been working very closely on these figures and couldn't wrap our heads around how this could financially be possible for mills. I mean, it's a drop in the bucket of what EMS costs. And so hearing that it is potentially just a contribution or a supplement to existing services is good to hear. Currently, Upton's doing something that works very well. We can't predict the future, what's down the road in terms of volunteerism, but so we didn't want to limit what Upton potentially has going for it right now with this. But so this has already kind of bolstered my thinking that it being a supplement to existing services. So thank you.
Thanks. If this board decides the EMS district would be of value to the county, is my number one issue with this initiative. Legislature set up a method to create improvement in service districts. And until recently, that allowed it for initial vote of the people. The people voted down, no district. 2023, new power is added to the powers any district can have. It's the power to run emergency medical services or contract for them. And then they added as an alternative, not a necessity, as an alternative. You don't have to have a vote of the people. You just need a majority of the Board of Commissioners. Set that district up and create a new, and start the process of levying the new mills. I object to that. I've been applauding J.D. Vance lecturing the Europeans on ignoring their voters over there, but I don't like to see it happen in Wyoming. You have the choice. If you want to go forward with Emergency Medical Services District now, of doing it yourselves if you want to, or put it to the vote of the people. And I hope you put it to the vote of the people first and follow the procedure in subsection A, not subsection B of the statute that you mentioned. In addition, I would briefly just mention that I think, and you'll do what you want when you have your own attorney, but I don't, and it's not the end of the world, but I don't think, well, put it this way, in order for the board, following the procedure in subsection B, 1812-105B, to go ahead and sign a resolution creating an EMS district, you have to publish, it's a publish requirement, you have to publish the proposed resolution, and you have to publish the time and date. Idiotically, they didn't say place in the statute, but the time and date of the public meeting that will precede it.
You're correct on that.
And my research shows that, now the statute says the publication of the proposed resolution must be in a newspaper of general circulation in the county, which it was in the Newsletter Journal, and that fits the bill for statute requirements. But that's in the paper, and by God, you open that paper, it was in it, and you could read it. But it says, and publish it on the county's website. Now, I spent an hour looking for it, I couldn't find it on the website. I called up someone who got their computer going, and we spent another half an hour or 30 minutes trying to find it, and she agreed it's not there. I called another person, went through the same procedure, and we were about to hang up when I finger failed on the language on the county website that said notice of proposed resolution. And by God, up popped a little box and I could download a PDF to my computer, find it, open it, and then read. It's not on the website. I checked Goshen County, which has gone through the process of setting up an EMS district. By God, they complied with the law. They actually put on their county website, so the proposed resolution. You didn't have to look for it, search for it, download it, open anything. So that's point 2. Thank you. I think we got here a mandate to raise more taxes. That seems clear. But money's now being spent by the cities, by the county, and others to help us have emergency medical services. I highly doubt that if a new tax is put in place to pick up the cost of emergency medical services, the old monies being spent on it will be returned to the people. Those old monies are going to be spent on other items in the city budget, other items on county budget, and we're asked to vote on whether we want additional money spent on other issues. Or we're asked, you're going to decide that for us. And I just generally, I'll finish up, I guess, by saying, point this out. I think if you create a district, the only people that can be taxed in the district are landowners that benefit. So if you do a county-wide district, that ambulance, say we have an ambulance, has to be located somewhere. So there's going to be people that call the ambulance, and the ambulance has a half-mile ride out, half-mile back. There's going to be people, it's a 50-mile call out and a 50-mile ride back. At some point, you got to ask yourselves, are those people in the county actually able to benefit realistically from the district? So I'm glad that your mind is open to the fact that we could look at something besides just a county-wide. Thank you.
You bet. There was that's not entirely truthful what you said, William. It is on the website, and some misinformation has been put out there. We can't just magically create this thing tonight or any time. We have to do all this stuff. We have to put the resolution out, the proposed resolution, which isn't the final resolution. We have to advertise it in various ways. We have to have a public hearing in a minimum of 60 days prior to doing anything. So this is a long ways out before anything happens. And we're just here to get public comment on it. Willing to listen. Go ahead.
Yeah, because they can't see me, this is Walter with the Newsletter Journal. You had mentioned a 2 mil, and you read in different proposals in different areas, it can go up to 4 mil. Would you mind just explaining, for those that don't understand,
Yeah.
what is that difference and how has it come about?
Sure. One thing I also want to point out, it's not an automatic 2 mil, so it does come up before the voters. If we create the district, it still has to be voted on to get the first 2 mils. Go ahead.
It will work like the hospital does. The first 2 mills will be voted on, and if it's passed, those are reoccurring, they will happen. The additional 2 mills is like the hospital, they have to come back and ask for, they get 3 mills, they ask for 3 mills or 4.
3.
It's 3. This way they will get them, their 2 mills will be reoccurring, then they'll have to come back at election time and ask for the additional 2 mills.
How often is that election up?
That's every 4 years.
Every 4 years. Thank you.
And just rough math, figuring with Kara a few weeks ago, it looks like it's about $20 per mill.
I mean, that's really what you're fighting for, is let's have actual conversations when these things happen, and let's really look for results instead of just lob political talking points at each other. Is that kind of what you're after?
Oh, yes. I have tried to engage the experts, and they're liars. I'm sorry to say, I've had the experience where they lie, and what they do is they change the name of facilities to erase the history of it. It's pretty scary, but I'm open to talking to behavioral health experts, the drug companies. I just think that they've dominated the conversation. So what I want to do is softly talk about it and say, these are the facts that I found. Where am I wrong? Nobody's ever said you're wrong about this, Sheila. And
Just rough math, figuring with Kara a few weeks ago, it looks like it's about $20 per mill on 100,000 worth of value of your property ownership. So if it's 2 mills and you got a $200,000 home and land associated with it, you're looking at about $40 per year associated tax.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Just to clarify, I believe when we established the landfill district, it was done by resolution also, and then the tax came up about a year later, year and a half later, just because the time did not fit in with the 2 elections that you're allowed during the year in May and in November. So that board stayed aboard, I think about a year or so before they could get to election, and then they put the mill levy to the people, and it passed.
Follow-up question. Let's say it goes to election, you guys appoint a board, it goes to election, and it does not pass for the mills. What happens to the board?
Go ahead, Mark.
They're the same as I will use the example of the landfill. They stayed together, and you can go again. I believe the statute says you can go in another 11 months, something like that. Yeah, so you can go you can wait that time and apply or ask to be on the ballot again for that. That would be up to the directors of that board if they wanted to complete or do the research, or if that's even worth it. If they come to the Board of County Commissioners and ask to be dissolved, that would be a decision of the Board of County Commissioners.
Other thing you pointed out a week or so ago, they can also go to the SLID board and see if there's state
Correct.
funding available for that district.
Mostly for equipment. It wouldn't be for employment or anything, but it'd be for equipment.
And since Nate mentioned the slip board, I'll actually bring this up too, because with the landfill district, when we went down there to get money to build the landfill, by the voters supporting this, and the voters of the county have skin in the game on this landfill, they were a lot more receptive to give us a grant. If you go down there and ask for a handout and you got no skin in the game, you're probably going to get kicked to the back. So in the big picture, if it moves forward, it gives them a little more incentive for the SLID board to help fund when you have a big project that comes up and needs assistance with.
Okay.
And to add to that, the SLIB is always more receptive when you are vested.
Yep.
So they usually have a 25% match to your grant.
And, sure.
I just
Lacey.
want to clarify something there. You talk about contributions and you talk about the refinery and power company and those making the majority of the contributions. Well, that's not necessarily true. Most of those corporations pass that on to their customers. And another thing that I think about, you're talking about grants again. You go down and apply for a grant, where does that money come from? That comes from us as well. These people are not making their own money. So it's just something to think about. That's the way it works. They pass it on. We still pay. We pay our share and we pay them their share.
Mr. Streeter?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And again, for an extension of that, in recognizing the contribution of industry and the landowners in Weston County, the ambulance services here have historically crossed the border into South Dakota and all the way over into, pretty much covered everything this side of Hell's Canyon. What's their cost share in this?
I would like, yeah. Could you guys introduce yourselves, please? Or do you?
Yeah, Chris Hall from Weston County Health. We have a contract with the western portion of Custer County in South Dakota, the Custer Highlands area, and they do pay us about a $2,000 stipend a year to respond to calls within Custer Highlands. That's as far as our service area goes. If it's outside Custer Highlands, then Custer Ambulance or other ambulance services take care of that. We're only responsible for what we contract with Custer Highlands for.
Is that going to transfer to the Newcastle district?
Their stipend?
Yes.
I think depending on how it shakes out, I think to answer your earlier question, right now we currently get a subsidy from the county and a subsidy from the city. And I don't believe it would be fair to ask for those in addition to the revenue from the taxing district. So my belief is that if the taxing district is formed, our sole source of revenue comes from the taxing district. We don't then ask for a separate revenue or stipend from the county and the city. I think that, for lack of better words, goes back and they decide what to do with those funds. Because Custer County is obviously outside this, I don't think it would be fair to say, hey, Custer County, you no longer have to pay us either. I think they continue to offer that additional subsidy because that's service we provide outside of what would be the taxing district here in Weston County.
Thank you for the rational answer.
You're welcome.
Is there maybe it's you folks, I don't know, Lester or Chris, can somebody give an overview of the current situation Weston County's in as far as our ambulance services? I mean, can somebody care to do that?
As far as, if you're looking for numbers, Kelly and I worked up some numbers today, financial numbers.
That maybe financially, what's it looking like? How many ambulances are available at any given time?
So I think you guys have 2 in Newcastle at all times, correct? Sorry, Tiffany with Upton Ambulance. Upton can staff 1 ambulance, sometimes 2, because because Upton is all volunteer EMS, we all work full time. So it's a matter of whether or not we can get away from our jobs that day. We currently have 5 basic EMTs and 1 paramedic who also works full time and crew. But so far, we have been able to take every call we need to for probably the last 4 or 5 months, now that everybody's licensed. But in the 13, 14 years I've been doing this, that ebbs and flows. You know, sometimes we have 6 responders, sometimes we only have 2 or 3 EMTs. So I would like to see an EMS district come about, but I don't know if we can pull it off financially. I don't, not with the numbers we worked up today.
Yes, if we've got some numbers, it'd be interesting to hear what, I don't know what they are, but.
And this is, that's just for Upton. That's what it would look like if we ran 3 sets of 2 basic EMTs in Upton. And that number comes to $693,098 a year.
Which would not work out.
No, not even at the 4 mills.
And we don't have to buy equipment.
Sorry?
And we don't have to buy equipment, nothing. We already have it, and we already have.
Right.
We're
Yeah,
already all set up.
this is just wages, the supplies that go on the ambulance, benefits. We did work in housing because if we were to contract to Gillette, they'd have to have a place to stay for their 24-hour shifts. This is 24 on, 24 off.
My name is Brad McKee. I work with Campbell County Health as a supervisor for training and education, but I also work with Moorcroft EMS and the State of Wyoming EMS office, so I've kind of got a pulse on EMS as a whole. What you as a community are experiencing is happening all across Wyoming and rural EMS. We're seeing a decline in volunteerism. We're seeing people are expecting more from the ambulance when it shows up. The problem that you are facing is not new. I think that an EMS taxing district is a needed piece of the puzzle to make sure that you have a sustainable ambulance. I don't think it's the silver bullet. I think you would still have to look at fee for service. You know, you have this tax that helps make sure there's equipment and people available, but if you were to utilize that service, you would still have to pay for that service, or your insurance would pay for that service. I do think that this gives you as a community power. And so I look at Fremont County as an example. A few years back, they had something similar like this. They were trying to get stuff figured out, and they were unable to do that. Well, they were at the mercy of the ambulance service that was providing services for them. So when that ambulance service said we can no longer make money, we're out, they took all of the equipment, all of the resources out. I think what this would offer your community is a stake in who runs your ambulance. It could be Campbell County, it could be someone else. It would also allow you to potentially start purchasing county ambulances, that maybe you purchase a county ambulance and today Campbell County gets to utilize that. But if the deal goes and it doesn't work out with Campbell County for whatever reason, or Wyoming Regional EMS for whatever reason, you guys still have that ambulance available. You don't have those startup costs. I don't think that this is a silver bullet by any means, but I do think that it would be a good first step. I also think for places like Upton, I know that it's not in your county, but Moorcroft, this is going to provide some funding that we're losing funding. Our reimbursements are going down. I think with the current passing of the reduction of the property taxes, a lot of community general funds, they're losing income. And I guess it really falls to you as the constituents, is what do you expect when you call 911? You know, what kind of ambulance service do you want to show up? What is the expectation? Do you want a BLS ambulance service? Do you want an ALS ambulance service? Are you okay with in the county waiting for 50 minutes? Or do you want something sooner? And so I think that's going to be a decision that you guys have to make, is what do we expect when we call 911? Chris, I don't know. I mean, I feel like where we operate here, there's another way that you could operate the ambulance services other than what we currently operate. The fear I have is that if we can't make our ends meet, you could be potentially left without anything. And I think you're taking a really important first step. And honestly, in the whole state of Wyoming, none of these EMS taxing districts have gone through yet. This is one of the furthest places that this has gone. And so you're kind of in uncharted territory. I think you're taking a good step even just to consider it. I'll be available for any questions.
Walter again. And this may be a question for Campbell County. I know that we've had trouble in this county getting EMS training, people to go and get that kind of training. Would this provide incentive for people to go and get that training? And if so, how?
I think what this does is it forms a district of board members to then make a decision on how are we going to allocate these funds. And that could be training. It could be Upton continues to run as a volunteer service only, but they're funded in some sort of form, helped throughout that funding district. X amount goes to Campbell County to help them cover their needs with what they provide within the county. I think it's ultimately up to the district to decide what happens with the fund. I mean, am I wrong? Is Upton not?
If we were to form a district and our tax dollars were paying into that district and Campbell County was getting paid to perform the same services as us, I would say we at least needed to be paid volunteers at the very least.
Well, which is understandable and is a conversation that can be had.
Because right now, we're not. We are strictly volunteer. We don't even bill.
No, and that's part of this, is you would have to bill.
We would have to bill.
Yeah.
You're gonna have to contract, that's in here somewhere, contracting in someone to
The
figure out the
district,
medical
the
billing.
district is responsible for that.
Yeah. And then in talking with Shane Kirsch from Campbell County, he said in some instances, they only get 48 cents back on every dollar they spend.
Yeah.
Because if Medicare says, we're not giving you $5 for that nasal cannula that cost you $5, then you're not getting the $5.
Yeah. So ultimately, I mean, there's catch 22 to everything here, and I guess it's, what does the community want, and that's what we're here to, we're okay with status quo, and so be it. Mr. Bow.
I've got a question. Most of my information is 30 years old. On Campbell County, when you're in the county, you're county funded totally, right? I mean, other than your contracts. So you're a county organization?
So we're a hospital-based organization.
But that's Campbell County.
It's a special taxing district within Campbell County.
It is a district.
Yeah, it's just like your hospital district here. We have the same thing in Campbell County. Out of those funds, they choose to operate in their own service.
In that type of district, when Weston County had Weston County Memorial Hospital, they billed, but if they didn't pay their bill, they couldn't do anything about it.
The new store. This is the one-stop shop. We have a pharmacy. We have a bootlegger's liquor. The deli, the food that you can get at a lunchtime is so amazing. The coffee shop. Certain Friday mornings, there's 30 people sitting here in all these chairs. This is the hub for people to come and visit, have their coffee, have their donuts. It's amazing what this area has done. Totally amazing.
Out of those funds, they choose to operate in their own service.
In that type of district, when Weston County had Weston County Memorial Hospital, they billed, but if they didn't pay their bill, they couldn't do anything about it. When the people came back to be serviced, because they were taxpayers, they paid for that hospital service, the hospital could not collect on it. My question is that what it is with you guys? If you bill more than what we're donating, which you're gonna, then do you tax our district? Or do you go after the person?
So yeah, if I understand your question correctly, if we were to respond to you, pick you up, take you to the hospital, and we send you or your insurance a bill, and I'm gonna assume you have insurance. Your insurance essentially determines how much of that bill they're gonna pay. They may say, we'll pay 90% of that, they might say, we'll pay 50% of it, and they use a lot of factors to determine how much they pay us. And then, of course, that varies by insurance company. Commercial insurance company like Blue Cross Blue Shield tends to pay much higher cents on the dollar. They might pay that 70, 80 cents on the dollar. The government insurances like Medicare, Medicaid, they pay down around 20 cents, 30 cents a dollar. We cannot legally then, if you have Medicare or Medicaid, we cannot legally bill you for the balance that they didn't pay. So if they say, we charged you $5,000 and they only paid us $1,000, we legally cannot go after you for the remaining $4,000. If you have private insurance, we can do that, and it's called I just lost my train of thought. It's called your self-pay balance. So your insurance might say, we paid $3,000, so you owe Campbell County Health $2,000. Now what becomes hard is, how do we collect that $2,000 you owe us? We can take you to collections, we can offer charity care, and discount that bill, but in the end of the day, if you can't or won't pay that bill, our only option is either to take you to collections to try to get some of it back, or write it off as bad debt, and we don't collect any of it.
So that would be the same with this EMS.
That's how it currently works here, that's how it currently works. When we pick up anybody in Weston County, we bill their insurance first, we try to collect the remaining balance, but.
Okay, how do you justify this then? We'll take what William brought up, or Carl, I can't remember which one. You've got people that live 50 miles out, okay? And more than likely, if he lives 50 miles out, he's probably one of your biggest contributors to the district.
Sure.
Okay, so he's paying more into the district than the guy that just lives 2 blocks down from the hospital. So when you get sent out there, are you gonna bill him from the time you leave the hospital until you get back?
We can only bill,
rate on a call.
we can only bill if you're in the back of our ambulance, and we can only bill for the miles that we transport you in our ambulance. But the ride out there, we cannot bill for. If we treat you and leave you at your house, we cannot legally bill you for that. We can only bill for you if we put you in our ambulance and take you to the hospital.
Okay, but that still brings me back to the guy in town that's 2 blocks away. He's not gonna pay nothing to speak of. And yet, this guy is paying more, the rancher or whatever, somebody that's just lived, we've got people that's got $1 million homes up the canyon here. He's paying more than the guy 3 streets down from the hospital. And he's not getting any service. He's having to pay for being out there. Where if you're in a district, it should be everybody's equal. He's gonna be taxed. Yes, it's gonna cost you more to run that ambulance out there, but he's paying 2 meals on $1 million home versus the guy that's living in a 3-bedroom apartment down here paying taxes. So it gets, that's one of the things. I don't have a problem with the deal. Everybody wants service, but you get into billing and then you've got to try to get it out. And if it's a county organization, Upton is volunteer and they've got a good ambulance. Osage had a real good ambulance, a volunteer when we had our people. People got too old in Osage to run it. But the districts, it's getting in, it's fine. But then it always gets worse as you go. We can finance it now. Right now, the county commissioners are throwing a brainstorm trying to figure out how to compensate for maybe a 15% drop in property tax, 25%, but that's only 15% of their budget. Well, people are, the reason that people put that on the ballot for a 50% reduction is they can't pay their taxes now. And the government's wanting to say, well, we need a raise. Well, when they say they need a raise, they're asking us to take a pay cut. I mean, it's a double-edged sword, ever how you work it. And my deal is if you can, I donate more than I pay my bill. If I go to some place and there's a $5 charge going through the door, I'll pay the $5. But if it's a volunteer and I think it's a $10 deal, I'll put $10 or $20 in it. And I think the ambulance service, if you're in there to make money, you're in there in the wrong reason. If you're a cop or a fireman for the money, you're in it for the wrong reason. Because there's no way you can pay a man enough to save your life, whether it's a cop or a fireman or a doctor. Sure. You know, and districts have a way of, they're a monster. Once you put them in, they grow and they eat. And I'm not against them. I'm just saying, in the system we're in right now, we're not going to be able to take a 25% cut in this district once we form it. You can't put that on the ballot. It's going to be there. And the guys, most of the people that's paying the most are going to get the least service out of it. I don't have a $1 million home, but if I did.
Point out to that though, Dan, in years past, the city of Newcastle, I think, was paying upwards of $100,000 a year, and everybody in the county was benefiting from that. So the people living in Newcastle were paying the majority of that.
Okay.
And so if you live 3 miles out, you're getting a free ride, or 50 miles out.
My next question is, you said you might be able to not do a whole first deal. How would that work? Is an ambulance going to have to carry a map to see if you're across the line?
So fire districts do that all the time. I'll take Lincoln County as an example, around Cheyenne. There are several Lincoln County fire districts, and yeah, they have maps with borders, where they generally stay in those, but then they have agreements with the next one over that says, oh, if you have a big fire, we'll come help you, and vice versa. And to Tiffany's point, I think it could work great either way. I think we could have one large taxing district, one large EMS district, and we could build a system with Upton, even Osage if we wanted to bring it back, Newcastle and Campbell County, and run a countywide EMS system that cuts down on the 50 miles that it takes us to get to someone's house. this funding gives us that opportunity to look at different places to put more ambulances.
On that, we've got 2 ambulances here now in Newcastle. But say we go to this district and contract with you, say, and somebody in Upton needs it. It's only 28 miles to the Sundance Hospital, and it's 30 miles here. The Sundance is in a different county. How does that work? How do you get, if I'm paying by the mile, I want to do it to the nearest hospital.
Well, and legally, we have to take you to the closest, most appropriate facility. And so really, there's not a difference between the level of care that Sundance Hospital can provide versus Newcastle. And so when we go to your house, by state statute, we have to take you to the closest, most appropriate facility.
So if my deal was more than what Newcastle could handle, then we'd have to take me to Gillette then, or?
Gillette or Rapid. Now, outside of that, if you cut your leg off, obviously Newcastle can't reattach that leg, but we can bring you to Newcastle to stabilize you, but then they have to transfer you to Denver or Rapid or wherever. But as an ambulance, we have to take you to where you can receive the appropriate care for the injury that you have.
Okay. My next question probably has to do more with the county. I know you guys have been getting hit terrible from the sheriff's department, taking people to the hospital and then getting a $10,000 bill for a transfer from someplace. How will that affect in a EMS district?
That's, most of what that is statutorily required care for people that we have in our jail system.
Right, I understand that, but right now, if they have an ambulance, that even just take them to the airport, I can't remember when my sister-in-law went to Casper, it was an ungodly amount just to haul her from the hospital.
So if I'm understanding this right, and if they had to come to our jail and haul somebody from our jail to a medical facility, is that what you're asking?
Kind of.
Yeah.
If you take him to the hospital, which you have to do.
Yeah.
And they have to treat him because it's emergency. But then, I know, I've heard you guys argument over this at the meetings. I'm not condemning nobody here. I'm trying to make sure this works functionally. Because once you get in there, it's tough. And there was a big group that he got transferred to Casper, and you guys go, we didn't know about that. And they go, well, you're stuck with the.
That's a whole different thing. That's Title 25.
But the ambulance will be involved in that. Will the district then have to pay that, or do you pay it, or how do we collect if you don't have the money from the county where we're a county district?
Go ahead, Mike.
By state statute, the county is responsible for the first 72 hours.
Can you speak up a little more?
If you want to do it.
By state statute, on Title 25, the county is on the hook for the first 72 hours.
That wouldn't be the district.
It's an unfunded mandate. It's not going to go to the district. The county has to pay for the first 72 hours of care for Title 25. Whether we like it or not. The state mandates that to us.
So say somebody has a massive heart attack in the jail there, and Newcastle can't handle it. And so Gillette comes in. The county's going to be on the hook to do that then.
Gated community people are our biggest expense.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Has there been any overtures or discussion on rolling this into an existing district with emergency services experience like county fire? And I say that with all apologies to my firefighter cousin sitting in the back.
Currently, no. I don't know if you can.
I'm not sure you can. We'd have to look that up. I mean, you do have a fire district, and a lot of fire districts do have EMS personnel, but I would assume that they're under the same issues that all of the EMS is. They just have struggled finding EMS personnel, so.
Yeah, I believe this is strictly EMS. Go ahead, Glenn.
We have,
I'm sorry.
as Commissioner Ertman said, that we have firefighters across the state, or fire companies across the state and the nation that have ambulance EMS integrated into their departments. As they are the establishment, are the experts in emergency service response. And that may need to be addressed as a resource to save the county and taxpayer not only money, but time, effort, and confusion.
And while I would agree with you, I also think that the district, that could be something that the district looked into to offer those type of things, because first responders are very valuable. And if the district had some information or the ability to help in that way, so that more EMSs were out there, more emergency medical people were out there, in order to train them to be on the fire, more power to them.
Well, and I would, sorry.
Yeah, just, sorry, Glenn, did you have something before I go to Ted?
I do.
Yes, go ahead.
Just want to clarify, I didn't make the observation that in my opinion, the 1812-105B requirement to publish in the newspaper and on the county website hasn't been complied with for failure to be on the county website, because I'm against, at least I walked in here again, it's like you say, a long process. Most of my motivation is because if you go forward with this, I don't want you to hand anybody in the county the ability to sue you and win and cost them, set the whole thing back months and months and months, if not a year or two, cost the county all kinds of money. So you don't settle it tonight, but please keep an open mind. Because, well, I took the screenshots in case anyone wants to show the judge. It's not on the website. And you can't change that fact now, it's too late. It wasn't there before this meeting.
Well, I was told.
Now, it's too late. It wasn't there before this meeting.
Well, I was told it was put in when it went into the paper.
But you're wrong, but see, check it.
Yeah.
That information's wrong.
Well, and it can still be, it can be put on today. We still have that 60-day time frame. So.
I agree with you on your counting days.
Yeah. And we will do due diligence to ensure that we.
That's what I'm asking.
Yeah. Mr. Sorry.
The only, I agree with you. I'd like to see integration between the different services, but our fire department is a strictly volunteer fire department also. You would almost have to have a paid fire department that would have EMS training or people trained to have that service where it would work. I know many communities have fire departments that are EMSs, but they're also a paid individual or individuals for their services or for their time. We run into volunteerism again, and I think it's a great idea. I think could be looked into. Maybe that's where maybe some of this money could go. Maybe it helps both sides, but it just throw that out. That's my thoughts.
Chris, is he kind of accurate on that? As far as it being a volunteer fire department or a paid one as far as the EMS goes within a fire department?
If we were to go EMS, we would have to go a combination. We could be a career volunteer. And that, when you start looking at grants and funding, that changes a lot of things as how we get funding for grants as well. And, you know, Chris said it earlier, volunteerism throughout the state, throughout the nation is lacking on the EMS side. People just do not want to do it. You start taxing your fire department with running EMS calls, you won't have a fire department.
they'll get burned out.
Tiffany?
And so to add to that, to add to what he's saying, we run ambulance calls to fire calls easily 5 to 1. 5 more ambulance calls than we do fire calls. Easily 5 to 1.
Terry, I'll get you after beer. Go ahead.
Well, you know, the volunteer thing is what we love, and our communities, it brings us together, and we've always had strong volunteerism in our county, I think, across the board. But it's true, those things are starting to wane, and people are too busy for whatever reason, or just not interested anymore. The young people aren't as interested. They're trying to make a living otherwise. I think the one thing is we're not giving Campbell County enough credit for what they are doing for us. You know, the money that we would get if we do this is not that much money. Even if you had enough volunteers to buy an ambulance, you'd have to save your money for several years just to buy one ambulance to have volunteers use. It's the reality of the money that would go towards the actual ambulances and equipment is astronomical if you wanted to set up your own district. I think realistically, in my view, I can't speak for everybody else, but realistically, we need to be able to support the people that are helping us now until at some point, maybe we can figure out something else. But it's such a costly thing, and it's so important. And unless they've changed it, the state of Wyoming doesn't consider it essential, which just shocked me when I heard that. So we're kind of on our own to figure this one out, as far as I'm concerned. But I think that if we did set up a tax district, you know, yes, it's another tax. We really need to look at that. None of us want new taxes, but we do want an ambulance when we need it, and we want good people to come to our house when we need it. And we want to possibly have the oversight of a board. I know we have way too many boards. I hear that, and I know they can get a little bit out of hand sometimes. But to me, it also gives you a challenge and an opportunity to have oversight of the people that are doing the work for you, and to make sure everything's going the way it's supposed to be, and make sure the money's being spent properly. That's just another way to look at it.
Thank you, Rick. Sure.
So, first of all, I do not like any new taxes. Taxes and putting more government in charge of our lives is not the way to go. If DOGE has taught us anything, it's that government agencies do not run efficiently. So you're looking to create another government agency and put it in charge of something very important like EMS. There's no doubt that we need EMS here. A taxing district is not the way to do it. And to Mr. Wagner's point, that if you go after grants or whatever, they want to see the community buy-in. By doing this, forming this district by resolution without doing it the way it should be, which is a vote of the people to see if we even want an ambulance district, not putting the tax before the district, but you haven't even asked the people if they want a district. And sort of, you're doing it right now. But you are looking to form this district by resolution by the 5 of you, not by a vote of the people, the majority of the people. I do want to bring everyone's attention to what you would be giving up, what liberties you would be giving to this district. In this legislation, this 5, however many people you decide to appoint, these are appointed, not elected people that you're putting in charge of this district. They're appointed. And you're giving them the power, it says right here in the statute, to collect information required for them to bill your insurance. So they're required to bill your insurance. That means that if you come and pick me up in the ambulance, I am required to give to these 5, 3, 5, 9, however many people, appointed people on this board. I'm required to give them all my demographic information, all of my insurance information, as well as my diagnosis information. That is what is required in order to bill insurance. So I am being required by this district to give my personal information to appointed people who then report it to the county commissioners, which has to be done in a public meeting. So it's required. It is required. You have to report. I'll read it to you if you'd like.
You know that, Carrie.
It would be under
It's
HIPAA.
required, and it would have to be.
It would be under
on the
HIPAA, so you couldn't do that.
You would probably not release my demographic information, but you would have to release statistics. The other thing that was brought up here is the disproportionate nature by including the entire community. We would all be paying, but we would all not be receiving the same services. According to statistics from the year 2022, I wasn't able to find anything later than that. The city of Newcastle is responsible for 568, there were 672 total ambulance calls in 2022. The city of Newcastle was responsible for 567 of those calls, Upton for 76 calls, and Osage for 22, which is a total of 666. So if you subtract that from the 672 total calls, there were 6 from the county. 6. But you want to tax the county and the city at the same rate. That it's disproportionate, plus I'm giving up a lot of my liberties, my freedom, and my information. I do not doubt that this is an issue and it needs to be explored further, and we need to look at different options, but that can be done with a task force. So form a task force.
That's what I think we're doing by forming a district.
You're not. A district gives these appointed people these powers in the statute.
To form a task force to see how the funds are spent, Carrie.
A task force would not have the power to get my personal information.
If I could, for the personal information, the way that I read this is not that I have to give your personal information. It's like if I took you somewhere, I am not going to have to break HIPAA, right? Like your information you get billed out. My understanding of reading this is every quarter that board has to have a report to the group, not of your personal information, but of the number of patients that have been transported with insurance versus Medicare versus things like that. It's not like they bring a list of, okay, we transported this patient, here's their private info. So really, I don't see how you are
So
losing
you
your
are
private.
correct. That is what it has to be reported to the county commissioners. This is what you need to collect from an insurance company.
But that would be done the way it's
You need all
always
of this
done.
information, demographic, insurance, diagnosis.
So I don't understand though, if I'm transporting you and I bill you, like the way that the hospital bills, I'm not giving this board any information other than just, I transported a patient that was insurance. I transported 5 patients that had Medicare. I transported 6 patients that had none. My understanding is your name never crosses their board, and the only people that have access to your health information are people that are legally required to have it for health.
So that is what is reported to the county commissioners, not what is reported to the board. According to the statute, the board is required to collect all information needed to bill your insurance.
I'll have to look at it because I did not see that.
It's tasked with billing your insurance. So therefore, you would need my protected health information, including my diagnosis information, in order to bill my insurance.
Yes, ma'am.
How much money does the county and the city currently give a stipend?
I'm uncertain what the city is giving right now, but I think the county's doing 30 to Gillette, to Campbell County, is that correct?
Yeah,
This you know, Chris, the city, what you guys are doing right now?
I don't, I'm too new.
100, I think it's right now.
100, 110.
It's 100 and, sorry, I just lost it here. It's approximately, sorry, I lumped it all together instead of separated it out by city and county, but it's about 103,000 from the city and 30,000, I think, 50 from the county. So our total stipend from the city and county total is about 135,000.
And then we give an additional, is it 20? Did we give this last
Last
year?
year was it 15,000?
15, yeah. So we gave it one to an ambulance.
That was, speaking of Osage, sorry, kind of how that came about is when Osage Ambulance did renew their business license, we did approach the county and asked for the 15,000 that was given to them to come to us since we were responding. And so we originally got 15 and we got the 15 more.
Good.
So I assume that EMS district is kind of on the same way as the fire district, where the fire district, the board's elected. I think that's how the EMS district, if I remember right, is supposed to, I don't think it's an appointed board. Am I right on
State
that?
statute says appointed.
The other thing with that is, you know, everybody's talking about the county not paying, they're paying so much or whatever, because they live 50 miles out and have a big ass range. Because in town, well, same thing happens in town, because I pay them levy for the fire district, and I don't ever use the fire district. I run on it all the time, but I don't use it. So, I mean, you have that give and take on that part too. And they said right from the get-go, it's gotta go to a vote. So right now, it's just, everybody's talking. It will go to a vote later on.
Well,
That's not true. If you live in the city of Newcastle, you pay nothing into the fire district. No, you don't. If you live inside the city limits, you pay nothing for the fire. The boundaries are excluded. Newcastle is not in the fire district. Is that right, Chris?
Don't give me a line.
I thought.
No, the boundaries, if you look, fire district, you have to be inside the boundaries to vote, and you don't get, your taxes are not charged. You're not living inside that. There is a legal boundary drawn around that, so that's not.
Okay.
Mr. Curley?
Thank you. I think you're under a misapprehension. Part of the changes in 2023 included that for these districts that the people don't have to vote to create, just the board, the people appointed to the newly created board don't have to be voted in. In fact, I'll just read it to you, it's a little short, 1812-113E. After July 1, 2023, if a district to provide emergency medical services is established under 1812-105B, which is why we're here tonight, the Board of County Commissioners shall appoint not less than 3, no more than 9 residents of the district to constitute the Board of Directors of the district and shall serve a term of 3 years and may be reappointed. Terms of office shall be staggered. Nothing about voting these people in or out. Terms of office shall be staggered. Nothing about voting these people in or out.
This contract on the fire aspect, we all are a community. There's a lot of county roads in the county getting paid for by everybody living in the county. There's a lot of county services that, I mean, there's some give and take all over.
Mr. Slagle.
Alan Slagle, and I guess there's several points that I thought that were brought up this evening that I thought were interesting. One is Commissioner Vera mentioned that the state doesn't consider EMS an essential service. And I guess I think that's a valid deal for the state. I don't think EMS is essential service. I don't think it's, in my opinion, it's not the role of government to take care of EMS. And I mean, so I think that's one of the deals. Then the whole taxing issue, I mean, it's the district deal. And I mean, it's been touched on before, people that live out and have a ranch are taxed more, industries taxed more, individuals in town pay less. And I mean, I guess, I look at it, I mean, why was this country formed? It was formed because of taxation without representation. And I feel that's a little bit the way districts are. It doesn't matter if you own a ton of property or a little bit of property, you get one vote. And so I got one vote for the tax is going to be on my 10,000 acres. And somebody lives in town, they get one vote for quarter of an acre or whatever it is. And I mean, I don't feel that's really a fair way to tax people because, I mean, if you're going to be fair or equal with taxation and the votes, the representation for the taxes, then you divide up. So you go like we do with our state government right now. The smallest county, well, we don't do it that way because now we do it by districts, but if you did it by the way it was originally set up, the smallest county, like Newcastle County, has 2,500 people. You divide the whole state into 2,500 people, and every 2,500 people gets a representative. I think taxation should be a similar deal. Divide up by your smallest portion of taxes, and then the bigger people have more property, they would get that many more votes to equal the deal. Then it would be, your taxes would be by representation. It'd be fair because you have the same vote. My vote would be the same as the guy in town. And so that's kind of what I think. Also, talking about the EMS districts. I mean, Mr. Hespy had the ambulance district here for a long time. And ambulance service here. And he operated it. He ran the ambulances. He did all the book work. But if we get a district, and depending on how it all ends up, I mean, like Campbell County, the guy that runs the ambulance up there isn't the guy that does the book work. I'm guessing these two gentlemen here are the ones that do the book work. But they most of the time aren't the ones running the ambulance. And so, I mean, there's a little bit of difference when you have skin in the game like Mr. Hespy did with the ambulance service here. And because then it's the same guy doing the book work or making sure it's done and the one taking care of the ambulance. If you don't have that, then you've got another person you've hired to take care of your book work. And so you get more people. It's kind of that whole government deal. When you get the government involved, you end up getting more people involved because of different levels of it. But anyway, that's my comments, and I would like to see not a countywide district is what I would ask for.
Thank you. Go ahead, Gary.
Question from a constituent sent in, sounds like a pretty good topic. It says, does the funding need to come from a property tax, or could it be generated in some other way? And that's something to think about, because if we're strictly considering that if this district is something that we, as a county, decide it's something that we want as a whole, does it change your mind on how those funds are generated? So if it's going to be based off of a property tax, and that's how those funds are received and ultimately paid out, or is there other ways other than property tax in order to create this funding? Say, for instance, I'm not saying that this is this is even an option, but, if there was a fee that was incorporated into a lodging tax, I heard somebody mention something about, on the tourist side, how could, I think it was Mr. Streeter, is there some funds that could be utilized in that area, and would that change our minds on whether or not we would be for or against this district?
Mr. Boyd, may I? I understand what you're saying, and there is a vehicle to do that. I'm an elected member of the County Natural Resource Conservation Board, and we have a mill levy that is highly important to us. However, we augment that mill levy by our own fundraisers, by selling trees, by selling rain barrels, by selling bat boxes, planting nets, and the fire department, our most excellent fire department, they have fundraisers, they have dinners, they have the fill the booth at the intersections. The opportunity to augment a mill levy abounds, limited only by imagination and the cooperation of our communities. And commissioners, even though we talk about the services in the city, how we get free ride, no we don't. Because this is our community, our stores, shop local, it's our sales tax that's going into those city coffers.
Could you do something with similar to the school districts within the A district, where they're divided by whoever lives within this district decides whether they want 1 mil or 3 mils or 2 mils?
I don't know if you'd have to look into that to see. I mean, there are some districts that you can opt out and not pay, you know. I don't know what the statutory, you know, you read this and you don't quite get all that information. So I don't know if you could have I mean, I think, you know, in speaking that right now, what is funding is the 1% sales tax, is what the county is giving towards ambulance service right now. I don't know about the city, what that money comes out for them.
Commissioner, if I may.
No, I was recognized. I'm hoping that tonight, before the meeting's adjourned, you'll take the opportunity to ask the attendees how they would vote, maybe show of hands or division in the room or something, but you can have at least an informal vote right here tonight of these voters. Thank you.
Great idea.
Just out of curiosity for the Campbell County folks, what does the future look like to you? Because I don't even know how I'm going to vote on this currently, you know. For your services in Weston County, if it remains a status quo, what do you guys predict the future is going to look like for your services in Weston County?
That's a good question. I think it has a lot of unknowns, but if I think you're going with this where most places are ending up, I guess what I would say is if nothing significantly changes with the way insurance companies reimburse us, if nothing changes significantly with the cost of doing business, from the medical supplies we have to buy to the cost of ambulances, all those things, I mean, you guys are all familiar with everything in life just continually goes up, and we're none the same. And so I think if we can't continue to at least break even from our operations over here, then we can't be over here, because Campbell County tax dollars obviously can't be spent over here. And so that's why this current stipend that we get from you guys is absolutely critical for us to remain here, is it allows us to continue to break even. Where we are struggling with is when we start looking at those big capital expenses like ambulances or cardiac monitors, things like that, there's not money in the pot to put a new ambulance with a new cardiac monitor here in Weston County, or really any of the places we serve. And so that's what I think us and a lot of other ambulances are struggling with, is the people's number one, and then the cost of doing business is two. And hearing everything that you guys are saying, being a taxpayer myself, although not here, obviously I live in Campbell County, I hate the idea of getting property taxes reduced by 25% to then just turn around and pay that tax in another way. That seems foolish to me. But then if I put on my EMS hat, I think, man, if we want essential services like fire, law enforcement, and EMS, that money's got to come from somewhere. And so, to answer your question, if nothing changes, I think we'll see the day where we just, for lack of better words, can't afford to be over here anymore, and we have to say to you guys, it's been a great run, we appreciate it, but we're to that point, it just doesn't make financial sense anymore. What I like about the hospital district is because it's not an essential service mandated by state statute to say, City of Newcastle or County of Weston, you have to provide this. What I like is it provides a dedicated funding source for EMS that's not competing with general funds from the city or the county, that's not competing with 1% funds. And especially with 1%, you know, the voters, you can vote to get rid of the 1% tax. And then what happens then? If that 1% goes away, then the burden's back on the county to say, now where do we find this money? And so, in principle, I like the idea of a taxing district because it's money set aside to run EMS. Whether that's us or anybody else, again, I think it gives you guys some skin in the game to say, we elect or appoint the board that oversees the funds that provides EMS services. Because I just don't think the way we're doing it is going to be sustainable to the end of time.
So, this is maybe, if everybody's okay with it, yes, Dan, I'll get you. I am not opposed to raising a ban at some juncture at this, William. I think that's a great idea. But I don't know how long you folks want to sit here and talk about it. But go ahead, Ann.
So this isn't really a yay or nay on the hospital district or on the EMS district, but it's just a frustration that I have. So when Alan got hurt, you know, when he had that plane wreck, and Roger brought out both his ambulances to pick up Alan and Eric, and it took 2 hours, which was fine. That was okay, you know what I mean? And we were plenty busy between them and the time that they got there. But we paid our bill. We paid it. And what I see is so frustrating with, and we were self-paying. We didn't have insurance, but we paid our bill. And we paid our bill for the flight over to Rapid. The frustrating thing to me is all these people in our county that don't pay their bills. If we paid our bills, they could make a living. And we wouldn't have to we wouldn't have to raise a tax so that we, responsible people, pay the other people's bills. And that, to me, is what's so frustrating, is that, and it's with the hospital too. I mean, so we have been self-pay our whole lives, and we've always paid our bills. And I was shocked when I got on the board and found out, here's all these self-paid people that don't pay their bills.
Yeah. I hear you. Well said. Sorry, Chase, I'll get you.
I want to speak. My main deal, and that'll be to explain my vote to you when I cast it, is back when I first got out of high school, I paid my property tax, and I got fire protection, I got a hospital, I got road and bridge, I got a fair, I've got a museum, I got all these things for my tax dollars. And I complained that the county always got a raise, and they said, oh, we never get a raise. We haven't had a mill levy raise in so long. Well, that's not true, because every 2 years the mill levy goes up, so they did get a raise. My deal, my complaint right now is not against the fire district, not against the ambulance district. I'm against the districts, because we've gotten in a habit of what are we getting for our original county tax, our property tax. Every time something comes up, it's a district. All right, now, when I was on the fire board, we answered to the county commissioners. It was the Weston County firefighters. We had, in '68, we had one of the worst years we ever had. We had 36 units in the county, and the only fire in the county that got away from us was Fred Martin's.
In addition to the weekly printed version of the newsletter journal, we also promote our community and share important information on our award-winning website, newslj.com, and in our weekly email newsletter, Nuke Now. We also connect with readers through various social media platforms and invite you to check us out on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. You can even take a look at a recent meeting of the City Council, School Board, or County Commission on our YouTube channel. We do hope that you will go to newslj.com and subscribe today, and we look forward to making all of our great content available to you. But regardless of your level of support, we thank you from the bottom of our hearts for doing your part to preserve a free and independent local press.
We had, in '68, we had one of the worst years we ever had. We had 36 units in the county, and the only fire in the county that got away from us was Fred Martin's. But now it's a habit. We're addicted. We want a museum. We have to have a museum district. If we keep going with districts, we're not going to need you guys, because Walt Soper tried to get a road district. Well, we don't need you for that then. Pretty soon, what are we going to need the county commissioners for? To run the courthouse? Everybody there is an elected official. It's a habit. If people really want this district, maybe we need to cut somewhere else. Maybe we need to cut from the fair board. And I'm not picking on the fair board. But they're the only ones that my tax dollars go to. I pay for the fire. I pay for the museum. So there's only a couple places. But we've got to get back to, what do you want? Do you want to be taken care of from cradle to grave? Fine. I guess, they say that by 30-30, we'll own nothing and be happy. I'm all for that. Because right now, I'm just not happy. I own nothing. I rent my house from the county. I rent my road by buying license plates. I mean, at some point, we got to have a change of lifestyle, people. We can't keep going back and creating districts for every single thing, because districts don't apply to everybody. How many people out in the county, and there's a few, don't get me wrong, that use the hospital or the library? A few, but they all pay us the same share. And so I'm just against districts. We've got to get back to doing for ourselves and setting some priorities, because we can't. I'm telling you, people did not come out. It was a major effort to get the tax deal put up, and they got it done in a pretty short time. That's how depressed people. And I know you guys are all workers too. You know you don't have money in your extra money. So I'm not against it, but I'm not going to vote for it until I know more about it, because this thing, I know what the hospital was like when we had it, and the solution was get it in that district and everything would be good. Well, I could ask a couple of ladies here, and I don't think it's all good right now. But we're paying extra for it, and that used to be in my taxes. So I'm not getting much from my taxes. And when I was on the fire board, I resigned from the fire board because they wanted to go to a district. And I said, no, we got subsidized from the county. We were getting less money to provide fire 365 days a year than what the fair board got for the fair in a year. But the catch was, if we got in trouble, we could go to the county and say, we had a major fire, or we lost 2 trucks, or whatever. And the county would help us, and we'd come back in. And it was all volunteer. We only had one person at that time, 2, one volunteer mechanic, one volunteer part-time fire chief. And so I said no, because as a district, we could be sued. As county firefighters, we couldn't. We did the best job we could. But the minute we became a district, if they burned my house down from the lack of doing what should have been done, the district was liable. And I didn't want no part of that. And I'm still against districts. Let's do with what we can afford and quit trying to get everything through districts. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. Mr. Kenny?
So, I think we've established nobody in here wants to pay more taxes, right? What is essential to you? Is your health and well-being essential to you? Can the county afford an ambulance right now? Maybe if we did away with a road grader, what's more important to you, a smooth road or your health? Right? That's what we need to keep into perspective. That's what this is with forming this district. It is coming up with a way to ensure that, as Mr. Bell said, at some point, it may come to a point that this isn't feasible for them and they leave. Then what do we have as a county to make sure that our health is cared for? This is a way that we can put skin in the game to ensure that we have an ambulance service if they leave.
Thank you, Mr. Rank.
So is there a way we could pay for this through a sales tax instead of a property tax? I mean, wouldn't that be a more fair way of doing it, where everybody would have about the same skin in the game?
Yeah, right. It's kind of my thought on, it's probably the most fair tax there is.
But you can't do an option tax to pay for that. I don't think that's in the law. I don't think the 6th or the 7th or.
I think, what I can guarantee you, is this is a long ways out, and I think there's about 50 questions I've heard tonight that I'd like to get some answers to.
Absolutely.
And that's worth asking. I don't know.
Thank you.
We could use our 1% money, but the optional extras, they have to be earmarked for a certain.
Because they're special options.
They're a special tax. They
Special
have to-
purpose.
Then when that, say you have a $100,000 project, once that 1% extra pays that $100,000 off, then it drops off. Then it has to be redone.
Reoccurring is what you're telling me.
Right. Yeah, can't be reoccurring.
Would that change if the state decided that an EMS was essential?
I don't think that fits with underneath the sales tax. And you also have, I mean, there's a limit on sales tax. I believe it's 7 pennies is all you can. That would have to change.
Okay.
You would have to have a legislative, and whether it is constitutional, you know, there's always the question of where the tax money goes and how's it spent.
Mr. Raymond, do you have your hand? Oh, you did, sorry.
I was just gonna kind of concur what Chris said. So back in 2022, Upton was down to 2 EMTs who were quitting. We were done, we were burned out. Volunteering is not easy, especially in EMS. Kelly and I went ahead and came to the county commissioners and asked them to consider forming an EMS district in 2022. It was discussed, it was looked at, we did not think it was feasible. But let me tell you how terrified I was, thinking that someone that I knew and loved in my town would call 911 and not have an ambulance show up. Think about that.
I sat on City Hall and, oh gosh, it's how long ago, 12 years ago? And during some of these problems with trying to get in Upton Town Hall, whatever you want to call it, to try to get volunteers, and we brainstormed for years, and you just couldn't get people to volunteer. I assume Newcastle runs into the same issue. It's just difficult to get.
It was the same issue with Roger. Roger had the same, he couldn't get EMTs, he came and asked about money. He did send his billing outside, so he didn't have a person, so he had outside billing. But, he ran into issues also. And we went through quite a process to see if the hospital would take the ambulance district, or not district, but take the ambulance service. That didn't seem feasible to them. I think we're just trying to learn and understand where we are. What was just said is, I think if you talked through the town on several occasions, you will hear people that did not have an ambulance. that they were put in a situation. Do they solve it? Do they get it? Yes. I was approached, about a week ago about, well, probably you could get there faster by driving. Well, I'll tell you what, when you're driving, I have no idea how to save somebody's life when I'm trying to drive them somewhere. So I think there's an advantage of having a trained professional in that ambulance with you to save your life. And that's the basis of a good community, is that hospital. Every one of you, whether you use it or not, you do pay for it, but you also know that it's there. You know that hospital is there. And that's something we have to think about.
What I was wondering is if our problem is with staffing, how is more money going to change that?
By paying
By paying them.
instead of pure volunteer.
Yeah, but like they were saying, is it enough?
I think it can be if you get to a certain point.
To be discovered.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of things there. Carrie?
So to Earl's point, we at the hospital have nursing openings, CNA openings. We can't fill them. We just don't have, they're just not people. The hospital's willing to pay, we just don't have the people. There's problems that we have here that we can't solve with more money. Some of it is proximity, we're far away from things. Some of it is weather. You could have a check for $1 million and you can't get an air ambulance to take you to Denver when you have to go. Sometimes there's things that we can't solve with money. I think you should form a task force, explore the issues, come up with creative solutions that don't cost money, that can still give this community the services that they need. For instance, Kathy Harshberger, our CEO over at the hospital, recognized that we had a need for air transportation here. And she negotiated a contract with an air ambulance company that gives this community priority air service, both fixed wing and helicopter, at no cost to the community. She was able to do that through her connections. If this community works together, there's a lot of things that we can do. Campbell County can do with us, EMS can do with us. There's a lot of things that we can do without having to form a district and without having to give up the liberties that we're giving up with this district. There's a lot we can do, and EMS is important. It's part of our community, like our hospital. It's things that we need to keep, and we can keep it without adding another layer of government and adding another tax.
Oh, sorry. I think for us, district or not, what more money allows us to do is, right now, we're staffing an ambulance 24 hours a day, 7 days a week in the city. When that ambulance goes out, we don't have extra money to bring on another crew to staff in Newcastle. We don't have the money to add that extra expense. So what we've chosen to do is bring the ambulance up from Wright, we'll bring an ambulance over from Gillette to cover, because that's no extra cost in our system, those people are already on duty. What it would allow us to do is, if we had a couple $100,000 extra, is to staff another ambulance, either 24/7, 365, or at least have an ambulance staffed by people locally to bring in and cover when they're on. I think our benefit for our EMS system right now is when we have an open position, we usually get 10 to 15 applications for one open position. We can fill the spot with the bodies. We just got to have the money to absorb that cost of bringing on another ambulance for us right now. So, but I agree with Carrie, there may be other ways to do that without forming a district. I hate to say it, but a district seems easy and seems like, man, if we do it and we assess taxes, we get this money and we're done, right? But I think it's a good option to explore. I'm not here to convince you guys that, you know, one way or the other is better. I think you've got a lot of homework to do, but we do support sustainable money allocated for EMS that doesn't compete with other priorities.
That's true.
And to play on that staffing, why money would help with that staffing? volunteer EMS and my full-time job, I have 2 full-time jobs. One pays my bills, one does not. So if I was able to be compensated for EMS, I would quit my other job, so that would fill that slot. So that would be.
Your boss isn't here, is it?
My boss.
So, out of the interest of moving on and everybody getting to go home with a decent hour, I'm not opposed to a hand vote. My thought on it though is, if you are adamantly against it, I would say vote that way. But if you feel it should be further explored by this board and not squashed immediately, and give this board an opportunity to continue to work towards an option, I just would have hoped that you would choose to vote that direction. Anybody else have anything? Would like to do a hand vote? I mean, close your eyes so nobody gets the other person next to them. I mean, if you're against an EMS district completely, I guess raise your hand.
If you're what?
Against an EMS district. Okay, if you're supportive of the county looking further into it, please raise your hand and form me. Thank you, everybody.
I think that was an unfair question.
Sorry?
So there could be some possible yeses, but
Well,
I'm sure.
I think that's why I added it in, and continue to look into it. Thank you, everybody. That was a wonderful discussion. I really appreciate it. I learned a lot.